Hello, everybody. Today in our leadership podcast, we are looking at the topic of getting people to believe that they can. I always used to say as a teenager that it's all about confidence, and I would have to still agree with that today. If I think of some of the thought processes in my own life that have decreased my confidence and made me feel like I can't be a leader, I would have to be totally honest and say the one would be that I'm too young to lead in some contexts. The other would be that I'm a female and so I can't lead in some contexts. And the other would have been that I'm not married and so I can't lead in some contexts. And if I had to think of a leader that has had an incredible impact on my life, it would have to be my brother Mark. He has spent many hours listening to all of my many opinions and helping me to believe that I actually can lead in many contexts. And because of that, I have had the great privilege of leading in contexts where people have been way older than me, in contexts where there have been both men and women, and in contexts where there have been single people and married people. And we as leaders have an incredible responsibility and privilege to the people that are following us to believe in them and to help them to believe in themselves and to see things in them that they can't see in themselves. And so if we have to look practically at how do we get people to believe that they can, I would have to say that the first thing is to pray and ask God for us as leaders to see potential in other people. I was praying in my Connect group a few weeks ago saying, God, show me who the next leader is, because I'm looking at all these people, but I'm not seeing any potential that is standing out. And I would have to say that in Connect group, one of the guys was asked to pray, and he is a very quiet guy and he doesn't stand out in the crowd, but he prayed such a beautiful prayer. And in that moment, my eyes were just open to see the potential in him. And I was so grateful to God because just him showing me that this guy has such a deep relationship with God is the first step to cultivating that in that guy. The second thing would be to plant the idea in the person's mind. I was asking a worship leader about this topic, about how did they come to believe that they could be a worship leader, and he's a very shy guy, not the most confident, outgoing guy, and he said that the first time he was ever asked to lead a song, the reason that he said yes was because he was too shy to say no, and so he took the opportunity and he hated every moment, but today he's leading hundreds of people and he's anointed and he has grown to love worship leading. But it took that leader planting the idea, thinking that he could when he didn't think that he could, and all he needed to do was respond. The third example that I want to give is that we need to help people practically. In the example of a Connect group context, I asked a guy a few weeks ago if he could lead the group discussion for the first time. But that's not enough to plant the idea and just leave him to it. What I did then was on the phone with him for an hour before, as we prepared. We looked at the scripture to see that he understood it. We looked at the questions to see all the different answers that people gave. And we just looked practically at how the meeting would run. He did a fantastic job, but I'm so glad that we spent the time practically setting him up to succeed. I think Jesus is an incredible example on all of these points. Jesus is the one who gathered a whole bunch of different types of people when he picked his disciples. He wasn't just looking for potential that stood out. He wasn't just looking for people that were like him, but he gathered people from all walks of life. Jesus also planted the idea. He said, come and follow me. And then Jesus was very practical in his approach. He did ministry and they watched, and then they did ministry and he watched, and then eventually they did ministry on their own when he left this earth. What a great example for us to follow. And then the last thing would be to celebrate courage. You see, the reality is there are things that disqualify people. There are always reasons why we are not the very best person for the job. But I want to be a leader that celebrates courage, that celebrates people saying yes, and that builds their confidence. I think we're always a little vulnerable just after we've stepped out in faith, and so I find it helpful to be very encouraging after somebody's done that. And then the next time, if there is things that they can improve on, to sort of preemptively say, why don't you try this or why don't you try that, rather than bringing criticism right after somebody has taken a step of courage. I always think to myself that if God could speak through a donkey, then he is certainly not above using you and using me. I pray that you may find wisdom as you raise up leaders and help people believe that they can. Bless you.